From the St. Louis Public Radio newsroom, this is The Gateway. It's Wednesday, April 10th. I'm Jonathan Ahl. A large property company went on a spending spree buying hundreds of homes in the St. Louis area. That led to maintenance issues that went unresolved for years.
It's rotting underneath here so badly that this house is completely infested by cockroaches.
Now VineBrook Homes is selling many of its properties to pay off debts, and the tenants are still angry. That story coming up on The Gateway. Missouri officials executed a 52-year-old man who murdered his cousin and her husband in Callaway County. St. Louis Public Radio's Jason Rosenbaum has more on how a diverse group of people tried to halt Brian Dorsey's execution.
Dorsey received a lethal injection on Tuesday evening at the state prison in Bonne Terre. He was convicted of murdering Sarah and Benjamin Bonney back in 2006. A number of people unsuccessfully sought to stop his execution based on his legal representation and his state of mind at the time of the murders. One of the people asking for mercy was former Missouri Supreme Court Judge Michael Wolff.
There was, as it turns out, some fairly clear evidence that he was in a drug-induced psychosis.
Governor Parson declined to commute Dorsey's sentence to life in prison without the possibility of parole, and federal and state courts also chose not to stop the execution. I'm Jason Rosenbaum, St. Louis Public Radio.
The Missouri Senate passed a bill that would stop state money, including Medicaid reimbursements, from going to any facilities that provide abortions in the state, including affiliates like Planned Parenthood. Members of the Senate voted 23-10 early this morning to pass the House bill out of the chamber, with all Senate Democrats voting no. This means that Planned Parenthood clinics in Missouri, which do not provide abortions in the state but do provide access to other reproductive health care like cancer screenings and contraceptive access, would not receive public funds. Senator Mary Elizabeth Coleman says if the Planned Parenthood clinics in the state wanted to receive state dollars, they could drop their affiliation.
If they wanted to continue to provide a wide array of care that is reimbursable under the Medicaid statutes, all they'd have to do is disaffiliate with Planned Parenthood.
Because the Senate did make changes to the legislation, it now goes back to the House. A St. Louis County senator is still pushing to compensate people who were wrongly convicted of crimes. Senator Brian Williams has sponsored legislation that would provide restitution for people who have convictions vacated by means other than DNA evidence. The University City Democrats' measure made it past the finish line in 2023, but Governor Mike Parson vetoed the bill. Williams says he has a duty to keep pushing for the bill to help out people who spent time behind bars for crimes they didn't commit.
I felt that it was only right for them to get some form of restitution, considering the fact that they were wrongfully convicted and sent to prison for crimes they did not commit.
Williams was a guest on Politically Speaking. Another Missouri man has been sentenced for his role in the January 6th insurrection. Sam Zeff reports.
Eric Harrower pleaded guilty to one count of parading or picketing in the Capitol. The U.S. Attorney in Washington says Harrower, who lived in St. Louis on January 6th but has since moved to Colorado, will serve 1 year probation and 10 days in jail. The jail time could be served on just weekends. The government asked for 3 years probation and 2 weeks jail time, writing that he hasn't shown remorse and, quote, fuel the manpower of the mob after he entered the Capitol. In his memo to the court, Harrower said he is overwhelmingly disappointed in himself for his actions on January 6th. I'm Sam Zeff.
Some property equity firms buy lots of single-family homes and rent them out. Ohio-based VineBrook Homes is one of the larger companies. Many of its renters claim VineBrook neglects its properties and renters, which the firm denies. Now it faces another problem and is selling hundreds of properties in order to pay off a huge debt. The Midwest Newsroom's Kayvon Mansouri reports.
Good housing can be hard to come by, but that's exactly what Julia Cowell and her husband William were looking for. The piano is center stage in the living room of the couple's 4-bedroom home in Hazelwood, Missouri. The Cowells have 5 kids, with another on the way. Their light blue house sits in a quiet cul-de-sac, a typical one-story home in this St. Louis County community that the Cowells rent from VineBrook Homes.
The market is pretty competitive for finding a single home to rent that fits our family in it. And so eventually we found VineBrook and this house, toured. It looked beautiful. It was perfect for our family. We moved right in.
VineBrook Homes started buying properties in 2019, hastened by low interest rates during the pandemic house buying boom. The company now owns more than 24,000 homes in the Midwest and South in cities like Cincinnati, Memphis, Kansas City, and St. Louis. The houses are located in low to moderate income neighborhoods that are predominantly communities of color. On its website, VineBrook Homes says it provides quality, affordable housing. Some renters tell a different story, and Cal says problems for her family became apparent shortly after they moved in. She says maintenance orders went unfilled, the roof started to leak, plumbing issues were rampant, and
The floor is rotting underneath here so badly that this house is completely infested by cockroaches.
Cowell says eviction notices arrived if rent was even a day late. A Midwest Newsroom investigation, lawsuits, and Better Business Bureau complaints revealed a litany of other problems renters cited, including non-existing customer service, steadily increasing rents, and deteriorating properties. And in Cincinnati, where VineBrook owns more than 3,000 homes, the city sued the company twice for breaking the city's tenant laws. Laura Brunner is CEO of the Port of Greater Cincinnati Development Authority.
So you got a great big guy pushing down on the small guy that is willing, for as long as they can, to pay too much for the rent because they don't have choices.
However, a VineBrook spokesperson says the company is actually breathing new life into neighborhoods, and without the company's investment, the homes it buys would continue to deteriorate. Besides complaints from renters and lawsuits, VineBrook is also coping with a huge $1.2 billion debt caused by a changing housing landscape and floating interest rates. In a December Securities and Exchange Commission filing, the company said it would have to sell off about 1,700 homes to satisfy that debt. It's already sold more than 400 of them. Noel Christopher, a single-family home rental expert and member of the industry group the Forbes Real Estate Council, says that's a typical strategy companies like VineBrook use when they're in trouble.
This is what these funds plan for. This is part of their thesis, was when you get into hard times, it's easy to cull the portfolio and sell homes and get that full value.
That plan may help VineBrook, but Laura Brunner says as institutional buyers rapidly buy and sell homes, they're fundamentally changing the face of the country's most vulnerable neighborhoods and shutting out individuals who want to buy homes.
When you're targeting Black and brown neighborhoods, and we already have this incredible wealth gap in our country, the very people that need the opportunity to start to build wealth are being blocked out.
However, VineBrook says it's prioritizing selling homes to customers who already live in them, and a portion of the homes sold were bought by tenants. It's an argument that doesn't persuade U.S. Senator Sherrod Brown of Ohio. Brown introduced the Stop Predatory Investing Act in response to VineBrook's business dealings in Cincinnati. The proposed law would bar companies that buy more than 50 single-family rental homes from receiving federal tax breaks.
They take advantage of federal law, which essentially subsidizes these predatory investors and do great damage to their communities and to these families.
Several other bills have been proposed in Congress in the wake of the single-family rental boom, including one proposal to investigate possible price gouging and manipulation by providers in the business. For the Midwest Newsroom, I'm Kayvon Mansouri.
That story is a production of St. Louis Public Radio and the Midwest Newsroom, a collaboration among NPR and public radio stations in Iowa, Kansas, Missouri, and Nebraska. The Gateway is a production of St. Louis Public Radio, a member-supported service of the University of Missouri, St. Louis. Music by Ryan McNeely of Adult Fur. I'm Jonathan Ahl, and from the St. Louis Public Radio Newsroom, this has been The Gateway.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association. Missouri produces wood pallets, railroad ties, white oak barrels, hardwood floors, and more. Details on the variety of products made in the state are at choosewood.com.